Kevin, to kick this one to you, with the Nets losing the last 6 games in a row, do you see them turning it around anytime soon in the foreseeable future?
I think that this could end up being the tail end of a failed experiment, to be honest with you. I mean, Kyle and I were joking about it earlier. This is not the first trio that has absolutely failed or the first big acquisition that the Nets have made since becoming the Brooklyn Nets. And if you guys don't know what I'm alluding to, that was the acquisition of Kevin Garnett, um, obviously Paul Pierce, Joe Johnson, Brooke Lopez, that big team that was assimilated later at the tail end of a lot of those players' careers. But what I'm getting at is the Nets' big three was such a highly anticipated, such a sought out big group that was just, oh my God, this three has to win a championship. This might be the greatest big three ever assimilated in NBA history. And it's been crap. Granted, last year's playoff run ended because James was hurt and Kyrie Irving was hurt, but we're looking at this as a whole. And unfortunately, within this 2 years since they've acquired James Harden, it's been a wash. Kevin Durant has been playing stellar since he got there. When Kyrie's on the court, he plays phenomenal. But with the COVID issue of him not being vaccinated, he hasn't been able to play. With Kevin Durant and James Harden going through injury bugs lately in the last 2 years, they haven't been able to get into a rhythm in terms of all three of them on the court together. Right now, James Harden's in the media once again for wanting to leave Brooklyn and potentially go to Philly in the offseason, as they're saying that James Harden is looking to or James Harden is not happy in his living situation in Brooklyn. James Harden is not happy with his teammate and Kyrie Irving for the difficulties he's providing the organization with. The point of the matter is you had three big egos on one team. They weren't able to get together. They weren't able to mesh. Point blank period. That is a failure to me, and that always will, unless they turn around and win a championship this year. But right now, the way that this team is playing, they're going to make the playoffs because they still have star-studded talent, and they have tiers above other teams in terms of the actual talent that they do have. The three of those players are just mountains above a lot of the other players that have like cohesive teams. So we all know Kevin Durant, Kyrie, and James can get you 90 to 100 points alone without some of the players that they've acquired in the offseason of this past year. But as a unit, I don't see Brooklyn as maybe a second round exit, an Eastern Conference championship exit, just because they can't get on the same page. I mean, Kyrie can't play at home, so you're just going to rely on James and obviously Kevin Durant. James Harden's numbers are down this year significantly in almost every category. 22 points per game, 41% from the field, 33% from the 3-point line. He's down in rebounds by about a half a rebound or so. Even in some assists, and then in turnovers, he's up. What are we looking at here? Someone that's not happy or someone that's underperforming and wants to get the hell out because the ship is sinking? I don't know. The Nets aren't looking like they were last year at this point, and I have no idea if they're going to be able to turn this around in time.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really look good for the Nets as far as their foreseeable future goes because Kevin Durant's still going to be out for the next couple of weeks or so as he recovers from this knee injury that he sustained
I
about a
knew it was a
week and
long
a
term injury.
yeah. I mean, not like long term as far as like he's out for the rest of the season, but
No.
he's going to miss some time. But as far as this experiment goes that the Nets have assembled with Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving, I think by and large, it's been a failure because pretty much the expectations for the Brooklyn Nets was it's either a championship or it's bust. When you bring these top tier players into the fold, the expectation is not only is this team going to be at the top of their game throughout the entire regular season, but this team is going to be in it to win NBA Finals. And up until this point, granted they've only had it for basically a year and a half at this point, they haven't gone far with it. They got bounced out of the playoffs in the second round against the Milwaukee Bucks last year. And with the way that they've been playing the last week or so, they've looked atrocious. Sixth in the Eastern Conference, and they could potentially slide even farther down until Kevin Durant comes back. And really the one thing that has really kind of been a sticking point with the reason why that the Nets have been losing games is they just can't play defense. When you look at the 6-game losing streak in particular, this is who they've lost to. So they've lost to the Timberwolves. They gave up 136 points on the road. After that, they played the Lakers. They gave up 105. They played the Nuggets. They gave up 124. They played the Warriors. Gave up 110. They played against the Suns. They gave up 121. And then the last game that they lost, which was against the Sacramento Kings, which is just abysmally bad, they gave up 112 points. This team can't play defense whatsoever. And I think everybody kind of knew that was going to be the expectation for that team, because everybody was expecting that Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, they're just going to be able to outscore everybody and put up damn near 100 points as a collective trio moving forward. And then you get some chip-in points from some role players like Patty Mills, Joe Harris, and maybe guys like Nicholas Claxton and Blake Griffin. But, when you look at the situation this year, James has been really a constant controversy as far as the comments that he's made throughout the season. Kyrie with his whole COVID stance, granted, Kyrie felt very strongly about that COVID position, but when you're missing half of the games because you're not able to play at home, it's going to leave a negative impact on the team, even though that he's been having some pretty solid performances when he's played at road venues. And then Kevin Durant, Kevin Durant's one of the best players in the NBA, but he just can't stay healthy. And one of the best abilities is being able to play. And granted, it sucks that, you get injuries here and there, but, not having Kevin Durant in the fold, it really sets this team behind. And until they get him back, this team is going to struggle. I think overall, this experiment is going to come to essentially a crash landing, because I think James Harden is going to leave Brooklyn after this season. And really, when you look at it, what do you have to show for it? A second round playoff exit, potentially another one this season, depending on how it goes once the Nets get into the playoffs, because they will get into the playoffs. It's just, I don't think they have the squad to be able to do it. And that's despite the fact that they got 3 top tier players. It's just, I don't see the consistency from this team. And that was when they were all together. And I think moving forward, I think it's going to be a pretty quick exit for Brooklyn. And it's unfortunate, because I think Brooklyn, the way that that team was assembled, a lot of teams, or a lot of people, were excited about what they could bring. But I think it's going to end in just abject failure. That's just how I see it.